Hey everyone, hope you guys are doing well. Let me know if you guys can hear me and all that stuff. Welcome back to the GW20 live stream. So, looking forward to another season of FPL, where at least in 2026, hopefully I can get a green arrow. Been a bit tough recently, but I think fortunately with the sort of team value amassed, I do think that when players like Palmer and etc. become quite interesting in terms of like our transfer plans, generally speaking, in a few weeks' time, I think given that I don't have too many free transfers, I should still be better off than most managers. Just because I think there's some complexity right now with how people get to Palmer. Like I've been looking at some of my friends' teams, even looking at just some of the just general sort of football Twitter templates and like how much money in the bank that they've sort of got from a team value or selling value perspective, and it does seem like that's going to be an issue in 2-3 weeks time when we all want to go back into Bruno. So for example, someone like Cunha is not really a great hold in a few weeks time. At the bare minimum, you want that player to be Palmer/Bruno. So how do we get there is a quite interesting question. I think even Foden to an extent can be sold, right? So obviously if we're thinking about how money leaves the game and kind of leaves our teams, like these are the types of players that we'd probably sell, the likes of Cunha and Foden. But I think being able to keep Saka in a few weeks' time is something that could be quite beneficial to me, whereas a lot of people struggle to do that. Or, of course, they just have to take Ekitike out of the team, someone who is a bit of a cash cow at this moment in time. But it's also tricky, for example, to get Ekitike out of the team for a lot of managers just because you want to keep him for the Burnley fixture in Game Week 22. So when Palmer is a buy in Game Week 22, I think what people are struggling with who have, let's say, moved into Ekitike recently is that exact situation where maybe you actually want to sell Ekitike post Game Week 22, but you actually need to make moves where you funnel money into the midfield in Game Week 22 as well with Palmer. So I think the benefit of having a little bit of transfer value at this moment in time isn't being, enjoyed by myself. Part of that too, I think, is when you kind of look at some of the best players in the game. Like I don't even own him right now, but I think Turkey looks like a really, really good pick, right? I mean, we've had him on the cheat sheet for a long, long time now. But because we kind of committed to O'Reilly, I guess that Sobo spot in my team probably would have been Turkey this whole time. And now with Semenyo gone, like there's not too much money you need to spend in the midfield. Whereas actually, there's probably a lot of money that you need to spend on defense. One thing I will say though is I think Tarkovsky is interesting as a pick. Like he's been super good, but at the same time, like you can still find budget options that are a bit cheaper than Tarkovsky that can do really well. So something or some player or one player that I'm thinking about is like Tarkovsky, even Richards to an extent. When all I need him to be fit for is Game Week 24 and beyond, right? I need him fit for the Wolves and Burnley fixtures the second time round, where Crystal Palace are actually playing these teams at home. And I think after that, that's kind of the FPL landscape. You can move into players like maybe Lacroix again, like Guehi, and hopefully we're back. But do let me know. I think my internet just cut out there, so everything all good potentially. Yeah, no idea. My internet cut out, but I think I was sort of trying to explain that I think in a few weeks' time people will struggle to make moves, especially for people who've moved into Ekitike, because I think what Ekitike does is he forces you to spend more money in the outfield positions, like in the forward positions, but then in a few weeks' time people actually want to go into Palmer, and I think so. If you kind of look at the fixture runs, like I think Palmer has a brilliant entry point in Game Week 22, Bruno has a Game Week entry point of Game Week 24. So when you kind of look at the moves in the future, a lot of people are actually trying to aim for something like maybe a Cunha out on Game Week 22 to Palmer, but that means that they kind of have to cough up money in the game. The problem with that, though, in Game Week 22 is you own Ekitike versus Burnley at home. So there's absolutely no way that most people are selling Ekitike versus Burnley at home, which is why my team value is something that I really hope kind of pans out well around that point in time. Because in theory, I guess I can afford to keep Ekitike. He's not something or a pick who actually creates a huge problem for myself in terms of holding him and actually still being able to go into players like Palmer, etc. So that's the main benefit in my team with the team value that I have. As far as some of the other picks, like for example, a Thiago or a Calvert-Lewin, um, Sorry about that. Yeah, so I think in terms of like moves like that, I think that's a nice little position to be in. Sorry, I had to tell my dad that he was in the frame, but goodbye, dad. There. As far as this answering chat questions, someone was asking selling Minte, Rice, or Wirtz. I personally think I would sell Wirtz because this is a tough fixture anyways for Wirtz. If he's not available, you don't really care. You get much more money in the bank. Minte apparently, yeah, is a dead leg. But keep in mind, if a player has a dead leg and there's a short turnaround in fixtures, you know, that's not going to be a huge problem in the medium to long term. But I think in the short term, that's the issue, right? You don't, if you have available substitutes for someone like Minte, you'd probably play them because this is the game also you can kind of sacrifice not playing your best players. It's Burnley at home, right? So not a huge situation or problem that I think, you'd have to deal with. Happy New Year as well to everyone in the chat. Yo, Alessandro, one budget defender, one budget midfielder to buy for the long term. Budget defender, I don't know if he is considered budget, but I think Collins is very good as a mid-price player. I do think if you just want pure budget, Goodmunson is actually really, really good. 3.8 million, right? And if you want to spend a little bit more, of course, the Sunderland defender is perfectly fine. I don't think there's much separating Mukiele and Alderete personally. I think either of the two are fine. As far as Bowen captain, I actually quite like it. I actually think, yeah, Bowen could possibly be the second best captaincy pick this game week. I obviously don't own Bowen, so, I'm almost saying this with a bit of conjecture here. But yeah, I mean, I still think I prefer Haaland because he's playing at home. I tend to like, favoring the team strength piece, but then also sort of evaluating the home and away piece as well. And in conjunction, I probably would go for Haaland. But the last 2 to 3 Haaland games have not been great. So I can kind of see why people, feel comfortable moving off of Haaland captaincy. I mean, I did the Ekitike captaincy the week previous, then Haaland captaincy, against the Cunha captaincy, I suppose, last week. But that was mostly because I wasn't really confident in United. That wasn't because I thought City were an exceptional team that I had to own for whatever reason versus Sunderland, right? Bench Thiago or Keane? I think I'd bench Thiago because to me, Keane is more of like a 0 to 90 player where for this week, you probably want someone like Keane to be doing well, and you can benefit from that. If he comes off the bench, like I just don't really see that happening. These types of players are probably, either fit for the games to start from the beginning, and you run the risk of maybe he gets, injured during the match and he gets subbed off, as opposed to, let's say, a situation where he's like needed to close out a game for 5 to 10 minutes. I don't think that's going to happen. So yeah, should I do Foden, Mark you to Turkey and DCL? You've got 5 free transfers. Mark Gui to Turkey and DCL and Foden. I probably, if you're struggling to field a 7 this week, I would consider it. I don't really mind Foden to Turkey at all. Frankie, happy Saturday to you as well. Wishing you the best for this weekend too. Quick questions. Would you start Chalobah or Anderson? I probably would just do Anderson because I think a home game's a bit better and his DEFCON rate's a bit higher. Rogers captain, I probably would swerve personally. Ake is doubtful is exactly why I haven't touched Noor in my team. I mean, Ake I don't think is necessarily doubtful, but I think it's more the case of this is a player who has had recurrent injury issues. In theory, they can play a bunch of center backs in the team, but Guardiola himself has been managing knocks. So I feel like on balance, Nico O'Reilly has a good chance to start just because everyone else is kind of like also quite frail. Like I don't think Nico O'Reilly has an issue himself. Happy New Year to Uchiha Hash. Stream not working, yeah. It did go down for a bit. In terms of City quotes, yeah, that was Nathan Ake having a twist on his knee. He did play for 90 minutes, though, and he is correct. So I think let's not overblow that situation, but I think it just means that we could probably squeeze another week from O'Reilly, to be honest. I have O'Reilly, Keane, and Minte. Ryan says, my starting 11, and you're just preparing for the worst. Yeah, I think that's fine. Like, unless you're, like, I don't think there's many players that are worth a hit this week. Like, I don't see Tarkowski necessarily being worth a hit. Or Collins, right, in defense. And then in the midfield position, no one has an exceptional game, right? The exceptional game is actually someone belonging to someone like Minte. Players like Sobo have a tough fixture. Even to an extent, Arsenal have a slightly worse game. Rice is maybe not available. I do quite like the Leeds players this week, like the budget players. If you're moving into a Calvert-Lewin, if you're moving to an Anton Stack, to be quite honest, I'd love to target that Man United team. What else is interesting this week from the midfield position? It's tough, right? Because you're sort of waiting for Chelsea players as well. Like, and this week is not the game week to sort of go for a Chelsea player. in fact, that's kind of why I've given kudos to Green, because it's actually like a really good Spurs run. However, of course, I know we've watched Spurs play football and it's not brilliant. Yeah, I mean Cherky as well is like an everlasting pick, but I think a lot of people are tripled up on City. Might start Mukiele over Nico O'Reilly. I think that's fine. If you kind of back Sunderland as a team, I don't really mind that. I mean, there's a pretty high chance Nico O'Reilly sort of lives in a world where he's going to lose his clean sheet, or lose the chance to even get a clean sheet because he's not playing 60 minutes, right? Start Mukiele O'Reilly. I'd probably go Mukiele, honestly. Should I go Minte to sack if I would do it next week anyways? If you feel like Minte's not going to play, go for it. I don't really have any thoughts on it. I mean, it is a dead leg, but I just think, why not just protect a player in this situation? I tend to think I'd probably make that move, and you won't regret it, as I kind of agree with you in terms of, you'll do it next week anyways. Start to Van de Ven. Probably Van de Ven for me. It's quite close though, especially since Tua's a little bit better at DEFCON. Bruno Giaminte, I'd play Bruno G. Reece James or Wilson, I'd play Wilson. Would you do Cunha to Rogers? I absolutely would not do Cunha to Rogers. I still think you should give Cunha the next 2 games at the bare minimum. Banda says, I've got Gabriel, Timber, Hall, Thiago. You're benching Thiago for Van Heck. I think that makes sense. I don't think you've misjudged it. I mean, there's a chance Thiago plays less than 90 minutes, and to be fair, this is a really, really good game for Van Heck, so it's not an issue. Would you start Rice this week, given the info he's traveled? Yeah, I personally think, once again, like, Rice is more of a 90-0 player this sort of game week. It's like, I think if you kind of even listen to the quotes, or like, Rice and Gabriel have been both players this season who I feel like many, many times, before significant injuries, which obviously happened to Gabriel. Rice hasn't really had a significant injury. He's clearly having an injury now. But these are players who played and played through knocks this season. And, when they're available and playing through a knock, they tend to start anyways. It's not really a case where, yeah, once again, like, I don't really see how Rice is going to be somehow the player you need to close out a game for 5 to 10 minutes. If anything, like, that's kind of what Norgard's job is, so we'll see. Wirtz to Rogers, I think makes sense. I think Wirtz is an easy sell this week for a lot of managers. Rice should play a few minutes. Talking Ball. Yeah, Talking Ball's a little bit of an Arsenal insider. Also, I think follow him on Twitter for information, because he does tend to share that. Most people do think Rice is fine, right? I mean, the reporting seemed to suggest anyways that Rice was fine, but at the same time, you have conflicting reports saying Calafiori was potentially fine after the previous game, and now he's, ruled out for this one. So you've DM'd me. Let's have a look at chat. Or it's Twitter, right? Where have you DM'd? Oh, okay, you just DM'd me. 4 free, 0.0 in the bank. I mean, Paqueta seems like he's a doubt, but I guess you keep him just for the sake of it. Mateta, kind of tough to move forwards right now. You've got a good defense, though. Still have Reinders. 0.0 in the bank. It's a bit of a tricky situation here. We're not tripled up on Arsenal. I probably would try and sell Mateta this week, I think. Yeah, I feel like maybe you could do that sort of move where you just do Mateta out into, let's say, like a OB or a GU, and then you use the money to upgrade Reinders and use the money to upgrade... man, tricky to kind of suggest, but I think, I think I'd probably just back your... You can actually upgrade your goalkeeper. I don't really like Petrovic to Raya here. I kind of still think I'd like to get Gabriel with this team. But I think going out of Mateta and then, like, in theory, I think Reinders can actually still be stacked and you can have a lot of money in the team, right? If you do Reinders to stack, that's a team that can play itself. That would kind of cover yourself for the situation where, let's say, Paqueta doesn't play. And then how much money in the bank would you have? So Reinders is probably... You probably don't save too much money from Reinders, right? Because he's got a lot of price drops. But I feel like if you can upgrade another... maybe you can actually do Anderson out. Could you do something like Mateta to you, Reinders to stack, and then Anderson to Gabriel? This way you can actually play a 4... Like, you can play a 3-5-2, but then if Paqueta doesn't play, you suddenly just have Vandenberg coming off the bench. Does that make sense? I think those 3 moves are quite good. Have a thought about it. Umar Chima, we can have a look at your team again, 100%. Happy New Year to yourself, too. Thank you so much for joining the stream. I know the lighting's poor. Let me try and get that sorted in the meantime. So let's see. We can probably get one light on here at the bare minimum. Obviously, I'm in Hong Kong, so it's quite dark now, as opposed to a lot of you guys where it's just morning, I suppose, for you. Hopefully, this is a touch better in terms of lighting. It's almost like I'm in a cellar. Oh, and I've actually missed a couple super chats, so I really do apologize to everyone here. Happy New Year to you, Suchuk. Thank you for all the brilliant work. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. I really do appreciate it. Suchuk HD, Mo7DO as thank you for your super chat. By Gordon Matoma. I wouldn't go Matoma because I just feel like, I mean, this is a player coming back from injury, so I feel like there's always an issue there. I personally would play Goodmanson over O'Reilly. I would also just buy Gordon over Matoma. To me, I'm playing O'Reilly because I think I have a much worse team than yourself. Like, for example, if I had Goodmanson, I probably would play him over O'Reilly. It just so happens that I've got Anderson versus Liverpool at home, which is not a great game. So yeah, I'm kind of just taking the L there with playing O'Reilly myself. Amarildo, thank you for your super chat. 3 transfers, 1.3 million in the bank. Semenyo to Roger / Bruno G / Gordon or Roll. I probably would go Rogers, I think. I feel like Rogers is the type of pick that I'd probably feel quite comfortable holding in the long term. Because I think in the short term, his fixtures are probably worse than Bruno G's and Gordon's. But then at the same time, Newcastle's fixtures do drop off very, very steeply. Whereas I think Rogers' fixtures actually get better and better and better from like gaming 24 or 22 onwards if you kind of visualize it like that. Black Take, thank you for your super chat. Start Lacroix or Anderson defense. I would go Anderson personally. I think home game. Both of these players are expected to lose their clean sheet, so I'd rather just back the clean sheet odds that are a little bit higher. Ultimately, I probably have a little bit more faith in Liverpool like not being so effective away from home compared to, let's say, Newcastle, who are just amazing at home. But going back to Umar's super chat there, let's have a look at your team. So, your team has got 2 free transfers. We've got Minte and Rice. I do think Rice should play, right? Just big. And you actually have a really good auto sub in terms of Anderson. At the same time, you've got Vandenberg, Virgil, and Timber, who are wonderful. So your team's actually in a really good spot. I personally would consider rolling, my friend. You know, when I think about it, I do think if you play the balance of probabilities, Timber should play, Virgil should play, Vandenberg should play, goalkeeper's fine. So you got 3 defenders at the bare minimum, and you got Anderson as a good auto sub. And I'm trying to think about if there's any other transfer you'd make. I mean, honestly, I would consider just sending it, and then maybe just going Virgil to Gabriel, right? You know, you could also do Minte to Stack. This way, like if you go Minte to Stack, you kind of save yourself a lot of money. I tend to think Rice is a bit more of a long-term hold than Minte. So I think that can kind of insulate your team a bit. And at the same time, you're sort of backing against a United result anyways. Like you don't own Cunha. You're probably going to back Leeds in this type of match. They've been a really good team. If you don't think Minte is going to start here, I kind of think Stack is a nice move. But I'd love to go both Stack and Virgil somehow. I mean, you could also be in the type of camp of, like, if you, let's say, do the Minte move to, I don't know, let's say Stack, you have 0.9 in the bank from making that move, I suppose, or even 1 million in the bank. And then that 2 million should get you from Anderson to Gabriel, right? So you're kind of in the same spot as a lot of other managers where you could probably just about squeeze that move. And Virgil in the future can be a cash cow. I don't think owning Stack in the long term is bad, but then you do have Anderson, I guess. So it's about like how many rotatable options do you have? Way I see it is if you need to get to Palmer in 2 weeks' time, that's probably one of the questions to ask too. Like, how would you do that? You'd probably have to do Foden, right? Or maybe some mixture of like, Ekatike out is, it's not ideal, is it? Ahead of that kind of like Burnley at home match. Maybe I would just kind of just do Virgil to Gabriel and roll. I think is probably what I would do. Because, okay, it's nice to have Stack in this situation, but I think if Rice plays, like, worst, like you're going to have a good team anyways. So I'd probably just do that one move. Thank you so much for the super chat once again, Black Take. Anish, thank you for your super chat. Hey, Fran, Rose, Gabriel, Virgil van Dijk, Dorgu, interesting. Saka, Foden, Cunha, Gordon, okay. Diesel, Ekatike, Garner on the bench, interesting. Okay, could we play anyone in terms of this Garner game here? Probably not, right? It's still Brentford away. Yeah, I'm happy for your team. I think that's solid. I think even the bench order is perfectly fine. And of course, if you've got no free transfers, let's not take a hit in that situation. I love the team. Good luck with that. Who's your captain? Is it Holland, I presume? Vids, can we do a wild card? Yeah, absolutely we can. Thank you so much for your super chat. Let's just jump into that. So if I was wildcarding this week, obviously I know I've got more money in the bank or a little bit more team value. Although some people actually just have more team value than me anyways. I'd probably go all the way down to Kelleher. Reason why I would go for Kelleher, I think, is, well, Verbruggen's still, yeah, he's already risen, right? So I do think Kelleher might still be a better goalkeeper than Verbruggen. I could be wrong. I mean, how are they doing in terms of points? Kelleher's actually ahead. Yeah, I'd probably back Kelleher. I wouldn't go Keane, obviously. I'd go Collins probably. I'd go Gabriel. I'd probably go Timber, to be honest, if I could get there. I might go Goodmunson just to kind of save myself some money. I don't think I'd go Richards, although he's a great long-term hold, but I think we kind of just need some value in the short term. Maybe we'd keep Saka. We don't really need Sobo now at this point, so I think he can be stack. Cunha is a tricky situation because I think Cunha for the next 2 weeks is really nice, but it's like, do you want to wildcard with him? I think I'd only wildcard with Cunha if I had a lot of free transfers still. Ekitike could arguably be sold, so I think let's just say he's Calvert-Lewin for now, right? So let's just start with this. How would we upgrade the team progressively? We already have triple Arsenal. I'd probably go Turkey in this situation, honestly. Like I think Turkey is someone that I much prefer punting with in the short term compared to Cunha. Let's just take Goodmunson out. So this is like, for example, the poorer version of a draft that I'd probably create. I'd probably just go Tarkowski and just, full send it a little bit. It's not ideal, I suppose, that you're playing like 3 or 4 defenders who are amazing at once, but I do think that Tarkowski and Collins are quite good. The only problem, I suppose, with Tarkowski and Collins is that they work in a similar situation where all of them kind of have the same games, bad games at the same time, sorry. So I think if you see, for example, like on Game Week 22 here, well, actually, you can't probably see it because it's cropped. But the thing is, Tarkowski plays Aston Villa away in Game Week 22, and then Collins actually plays Chelsea away in Game Week 22. So they both kind of have fixtures that I think go at the same time with each other in terms of good and bad ones. So let me just have a deeper think about defense on the wild card. Possibly, I think actually just going simply for a Sunderland player could just make a bit more sense. I think you could probably just still own Mukiele. Or Alderete, right? Both guys are great. Maybe we just drop Tarkowski here. I'd probably just go Mukiele. And you're backing double Brentford defense, which I think is quite a unique differential. Like the whole point of a wild card, I think, is you're setting yourself up in the long term. But I think the kind of long term punch you're taking in most weeks is you're playing double Brentford defense, which I think could actually be really good. We probably don't go Dubravka here. I think you chance John. So if John's available to you, John's a really good pick. Sorry, someone sent me a WhatsApp, so let's just have a look at that. Everything's good. Fine. Never mind. We probably keep Foden stacked. Oh, we've got so much money in the team here. So we do need Bruno in a few weeks' time, but this is like an extraordinary team. Could we even chance going Palmer in the wild card? I probably just would, Like stick Palmer on the team and actually like he's just an amazing hold long term. This is not crazy to me. What do you guys think about the draft? Is there something glaringly missing here? So you got Triple City, which I like. You've got solid defense, which I like. You've got double Arsenal defense, which is great. You don't have Ekitike, which is not a problem to me. I guess Bowen's probably the only pick that I'd say is he even better than Calvert-Lewin? I don't think so, So am I not spending money correctly? I guess it's like, okay, do you go Cunha for a while? I don't think this is too absurd. What do you guys think about this wild card here? Let's see what chat says. Keane or Collins? I missed my super chat. No, we'll definitely go into your super chat in a moment. Everton defense is missing. I don't think it's necessarily missing. Obviously, they've got great games coming up, but it's kind of like you're betting on Brentford over Everton, right? Because it's kind of cheaper to do so. But yeah, you could always go Tarkowski and go Pickford as well. I don't think that's this is more money. But this is what I'm trying to say, where if you actually kind of look at Brentford as a team, it's like they are a pretty good punt, I would say. The only thing you need to do, for example, with this team is in a few weeks' time, this Foden spot needs to be Bruno. So I feel like as long as you're, leaving room for that, I think that's fine. Maybe there's a problem with let's say going both Stack and Calvert-Lewin, because you actually, the tricky situation with that, I suppose, with 2 budget players like that is you don't want their fixtures to be the same, so it kind of disbenefits you when you're trying to rotate a bit more, especially since you already have Krupi, for example, or let's say a Gu in the team. So I guess if you want a bit more fixture diversity, I guess Lefay works out quite well. But yeah, I don't really think I need to spend that much money in the forward position either, right? Like if I going for Bowen to me just feels like just unnecessary. Although, I have Palmer in the team here who, clearly is a luxury pick. You don't necessarily need Palmer, but I just think it saves you like multiple free transfers in the future trying to find a way to go back into Palmer for a few weeks just so that you can punt like, I don't know, 2 weeks of like Ekitike or 2 weeks of Cunha. Does that make sense? Um, so I think whilst you're like, I mean, you're also kind of ignoring, for example, Liverpool versus Arsenal away, right? Which is actually something that's like just going to be beneficial going forward. So yeah, I think owning Saka, Palmer, Foden is like already close to the best team possible. I guess you can still persist with trying to go for Gordon for a bit or Rogers, right? So of course, if you want to spend a little bit more money in the team, like I personally would just go back to maybe I'll just go Kelleher plus Tarkowski, right? Say you really want to cover the Everton defensive threat, that's one option. But I personally think you can still always just go Collins, and then I don't know, the Lefay position can always just be like Gordon for a few weeks, right? This way you actually spend more money and you kind of maximize on all the teams available. This is an alternative draft. I think it could make sense. Like Calvert-Lewin, I don't think I'd feel too bad about playing him every single week. Do we want to have a better defense? Like, sure we do. And maybe like better defense just means, well, you kind of have it, right? You still have like Mukiele here. Is there a strong upgrade on Goodmanson? Like, not really. And you can't really go for Klein now on the wildcard draft because I think the issue with Klein is that Munoz will still come back within a month's time, right? So yeah, I think this draft is really strong. This type of template, yeah, definitely something I would consider. Cool. That's gonna be the and I think that Gordon spot could be Rogers, right? Say you don't like Gordon, just go for Rogers. Same thing there. All right, back to chat questions, and of course, I think I did miss a super chat, not intentionally though. So let's see. Anik, thank you so much for your super chat. You've got Paqueta. Should I sell for Rodon for Mukele? Should you sell Rodon for Mukele for a -4? You've got Rodon, KDH, and Krupi on the bench. Okay. So basically, you have no one on the bench, and you've got Paqueta. I don't know. I probably would actually just go. The thing is, this is not a great game for. I'm trying to think about what is West Ham's fixture on once you miss the Wolves game, right? So you got Nottingham Forest at home, which is quite good. You still have the Sunderland game. You still have the Burnley game. Okay, so I can kind of see why you want to keep Paqueta in the team. Yeah, you know what? I probably would consider something like that. Yeah, it's not ideal. And the thing is, you've got KDH as well, though. Something I would consider is probably just KDH to stack. Because stack versus Man United, to me, is a lot more appealing than Mukiele versus Tottenham away. I don't know if you disagree with me, but I just personally think I'd rather have, if I was to -4 for a player to get into my team, and I only have 10 players, I'd much rather play stack than Mukiele this week. Mukiele is a solid defensive option, but I think he's like better than some of the other defenders this week. But when you're comparing to, let's say, being able to get a midfield transfer, I'd probably go stack versus United. Let me know what you think about that, though. Either way, I think both moves are fine. Yeah, so I agree with keeping Paqueta. Why would I suggest selling O'Reilly? I just think his minutes in the future are just going to be bad protagonist. So, for example, like if you're going to sell O'Reilly this week and you bring in someone like Tarkowski or let's say Collins, the benefit I think is you're keeping someone who's going to give you value like long term, right? So, for example, like replacing O'Reilly's shaky-ish minutes for someone who actually plays games consistently and actually will spit like expected value all the time is something that I think is beneficial. Even from like the whole point of taking a hit is not so you can actually redeem the hit on the week. The whole point of taking a hit really is that you're basically saying, if I take this hit, I'm going to squeeze out more than the -4 would, as an accumulation of that transfer. So the way that I see it is like when I take a hit myself as an FPL manager, I'm probably saying I can recoup most of the value of the hit on the immediate game week, but after that, I can get the rest of the value coming back to me in the future game weeks after that. And at least I've put in place someone who can kind of fix my team from an FPL sense long term. Noren, Semenyo to Tarkowski and Cherky, I think makes a lot of sense. Those are great moves, Chen. Juwon Glory, start Anderson or Thiago. Probably Thiago still. Rice plays. I think Rice, I would start Rice as well, 100%. To me, Rice's classic situation of starts or doesn't even make the team. Happy New Year to you as well, Lofgren. Hall status, I think Hall's fine. It seems like he just has a knock and he's played through that, so it should be fine. Gabriel Dorgu, still fine. O'Reilly, slightly problematic. I do think O'Reilly to Tarkowski makes a lot more sense than Hall to Tarkowski. So if you can actually leave room for a move, I would just do that. Could you do O'Reilly to Tarkowski and Samir to Jerky for a minus? I love those moves, protagonist. O'Reilly Lacroix first on your bench. I think O'Reilly first bench is still a bit better. I mean, you can't feel too bad about ever like playing Lacroix, right? But it is sort of like seeking 3 points from Lacroix versus, I don't know, O'Reilly could maybe have a nice haul. I don't think O'Reilly's a sell. He was bad last game. But I think like you have to give some players a bit of grace, right? For example, like what's a good example of this? Like Ryan Cherky played bad versus West Ham, and then he suddenly played 90 minutes every single match since. This is not because Ryan Cherky is a bad player. It's just that everyone's capable of having a bad game, and Pep's not. He's not incognizant of that, right? So yeah. Enzo LaFay says he cooks tomorrow. I would love that. You'd love to sit up 4 defenders, not touch Hall. Yeah, that makes sense. Morning, mate. How's it going, John? Question of the day is to start Alderete or Tavernier. Definitely Alderete for me. I just don't think, I don't think you're getting that much value from Tavernier versus Arsenal defense. And yeah, you're playing Arsenal defense anyway, so go for it. Do Virgil to Tarkowski with my only free transfer, sell Wirtz. I would probably still sell Wirtz. What are you confused about, Adam Fine? Would you consider DCL plus Bone in the wild card? I probably would, but I don't love the forwards that much. I'd much rather spend money in the midfield. Thoughts on Sanchez and wild card? He could work out too, to be fair. Is there a good Sanchez Dubravka rotation? I haven't really looked into that myself. Super chat as well from Kaposar. Thank you so much for that. Hi, Fran on wildcard. Planning bench boost 24, Verbruggen, Dubravka. Okay, interesting. You got Nunez, to be fair, is a good pick if you don't want to go Cherky, right? And actually, the trick here that you've done is you haven't gone Foden. Nice. So you got Nunez, Timber, Gabriel, Mukiele, right? Heaven. Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure about Heaven, obviously, because I do worry about like minutes anyways when Delict comes back, or I don't know, Delict coming back seems like a distant dream now. Bruno G, Roger, Saka, Lefay, Holland, Bowen, Ekatike suggestions. I personally think I'd still spend a little bit more money in the midfield. Reason being, in a few weeks' time, you probably want Palmer and Bruno. So if you don't spend enough money in the midfield, you're going to have to funnel that money back. However, like one thing I'm thinking about, okay, maybe you can do Bowen. If you have a lot of free transfers in the team, fine. Maybe you can go a little bit more forward strong so that then you can use 2 free transfers to go back into players like Palmer and Bruno. But my kind of thought and suggestion in terms of that wild card is why not just consider going 3-5-2 anyways, keep one of Ekatike and Bowen, the player that you actually like more, and then actually use the rest of the money to kind of have placeholders for Bruno. So like you're currently doing right now, I mean, maybe you can actually just have one of the midfielders be Palmer, right? It could be a Bruno Gio Rogers. You can keep one of the two, and maybe you can have Palmer. Or, you don't have Lafayette as an example because you have much more money. What are my plan moves this week? I did Hincapié to Gabriel. What game weeks am I planning to use the chips? No plan whatsoever. We kind of need to wait for how the single game weeks and double game weeks are going to unfold in terms of blank game weeks. And then I can make a chip strategy. Right now, the plan is to not use any chips in the short term. Best 3 captains, I think Haaland, Bowen, Saka, probably in that order. Amaraldo, no sub, covered 2 free transfers, 1.4 million, Rodon or Wilson out. 1.4 million, I'd probably go Rodon out to... do you need sub cover is probably the first question I'd want to ask you. I kind of like going out of Harry Wilson if you want to. Like stack, I think makes sense. You can save a lot of money there, and then maybe you can upgrade Rodon in the future to someone like Gabriel, as an example. Protagonist, I can definitely have a look at your Discord team. But the access to the members, of course, is maybe. Yeah, to be honest, I guess you're backing like the Fulham. I do like actually the Fulham double up. In a weird way though, because you're not backing Liverpool whatsoever. Protagonist, like, have you ever considered just playing Anderson over Guehi? Because this way, like, you're kind of just capturing like, okay, full Fulham on the offensive, like with your own team. I think that makes a bit of sense. But yeah, Amaraldo, sorry, going back to your super chat yourself, I kind of like the idea there of just moving out of Wilson. because you already know that the Wilson fixtures in the future are quite mediocre, right? Whereas obviously with the defensive piece, unless you really need a defender this week, I think there's probably more midfielders who give you a bit more value on this game week as a Rodon replacement. Like the only Rodon replacement that I can think of this week that's actually really good in your price range is well, I mean, to be fair, Mateus Nunez is probably, like, if you could go for him, like maybe go for him. Otherwise, I'd probably go for a midfielder. And then, of course, I think Collins is actually a really good pick. Gavinho, thank you so much for your super chat. Hi, Fran. You've got Raya, Rice, Saka. Interesting. For Gab, would you do Anderson/Rice to Gab Garner for -4 and 20, or roll 20 and go Raya/Dorgu/Thiago to Sanchez, Gab plus 4.2 forward, -4 and 21? Interesting. So my only concern is, I guess, are you forced anyways to go early next game week, and that kind of puts you in a pretty tough predicament. I probably would just do the Anderson Rice moves this week. Yeah. My only thing is, like, what kind of midfielders do you have right now? Is Garner like in addition to another sort of 4.9 type midfielder? Like, are you going Garner plus Stack, Garner plus Lefay, or is like this is your first midfielder in your team who's a budget midfielder? Because I don't really like stacking double budget midfield if you can avoid it. Best midfielder for 6 million and under, I would probably actually say Anton Stack. Hi Reese, hope you've had a good holidays as well. No, it's not optimal, but on Wildcard this week, you've got Saka, Elliot Anderson, Alderete, or Rice, Bruno G, and any. I would probably still go Saka just because I kind of like him as a placeholder, right? As I kind of said, one of the tricky things that we'll all have to deal with in a few weeks' time is moving into Palmer, moving into Bruno. This kind of requires us to have a little bit more money in the midfield, and at least some players who are within the price points where you can actually just easily juggle between the two. So I quite like doing that. Hincapié should be starting. I think 100% he should be starting. Kashif, start Guehi or Dorgu. I'd probably go Dorgu. Start 2 of Thiago, Enzo Lefay, and Anderson. I think I would do Enzo Lefay, and I'd probably do Thiago, honestly. Is Welbeck starting? I think so. I mean, he's fit, right? And he's been in training recently. I don't think Welbeck's not going to start. But he's obviously coming back from injury as well. And you know that Fabian Hurtzler has, I don't know, always managed his minutes in a certain way. So I think there's a small concern there, but I do think that Welbeck should be starting. Mo, your message was retracted, so would love to see that again. Will Rice start? I tend to think that he will. Most Arsenal sort of in the know sources are kind of suggesting that that's the case. I think it's positive, for example, that let's say Calafiori was ruled out, but Rice wasn't, right? Should I sell Enzo Fernandez? No, I think Enzo Fernandez is a great hold for next week, right? He's not great for this week, but he's definitely a great hold starting from next week. Garner would be a fourth midfielder along with Potts. Yeah, I kind of agree with you then. I'd probably just make the moves next week instead, because I do think that, yeah, having double midfield is not ideal, like double budget mid. Especially as we said, that we want to go stronger into the midfield in a few weeks' time. Will Semenyo start? It seems like he should. Which two of them should I start? O'Reilly, Keane, and Stack. I would definitely do Stack and Keane and then have O'Reilly as a bench option. Captain Foden, that's interesting. I've not actually seen many people go for Foden. Captain Bowen, I quite like. I don't have Bowen, so good luck to you if you're doing that. Let's actually do a bit of a poll first in terms of captaincy. By the way, to chat, all you need to do is be subscribed. But thank you guys so much for joining the stream. Please do like the stream as well. It does really help support the channel. Otherwise, let's see, in terms of game week 920 here, sorry, captaincy. Let's do a little bit of a poll here. I think it's Haaland, Bowen, Saka, and other, right? Like, I can't really think of anyone at the top of my head. Obviously, someone's mentioned Foden, but then I think that's, like, not an extremely popular pick this week. I have seen a lot of Saka captaincies recently, though. Start 2 of Nico O'Reilly, Elf, and VDB. I'd go VDB and Elf. Hi, Fran. Hey, Ben. Thank you so much. You're also from Hong Kong, now living in Melbourne. Awesome. I'm living in London, obviously, but back in Hong Kong for a bit. Should I start Keane, Minte, or Thiago? I'd probably do Keane and Thiago, to be honest, because I don't really think Minte starts, but I could be wrong, right? Let's say if you think Thiago, like, I guess the whole potential of Minte is a bit higher just because of the fixture. So maybe you just go Keane and Minte and then hope for the best. You don't think O'Reilly will get enough minutes? I do think he will get maybe decent minutes this week. I tend to think that O'Reilly is a bad pick, like, after this week, right? How should we prioritize our transfers next couple of game weeks? Chelsea players like Palmer, 100%. I think the way that I kind of approach it is, like, if you look at my team, let's just quickly, like, walk through what I would do with my team over the next few weeks, right? So let's just do some moves. So say I go on the transfers panel now. I've got 1.9 million in the bank. I probably want to get Cunha to Palmer. So the way that I get there is, if Keane is not playable, I just go into someone like Goodmanson. But let's say Keane's, like, still playable for some reason. I guess I'd have to just go O'Reilly out. And unfortunately, like I think the tricky thing is I can't get towards someone like Collins, so I do need to shop for someone quite cheap, and I do need to find this sort of player that this magical player that will kind of get me into, I don't know, a fully functioning FPL team soon. And it might even be, for example, I still just keep O'Reilly in my team in the short term, get a Keane replacement because Branthwaite is a bigger problem. Like I need to weigh up like one of the two in my team, like whatever's worse. But it could still be like I go O'Reilly out into, let's say, I don't know, a Sunderland defender in the short term, like Mukiele or Alderete, or I don't think I'm going Reynaldo, but yeah, just a suggestion. Um, and then this is how I get to Palmer, right? So this is Palmer in 2 weeks' time for myself. And then I think it's going to be in game week 24. You want to go for Bruno because if you kind of look at Bruno's games, and I'll look at Bruno now. So Bruno seems like he comes back versus City, but then City is game week 22, Arsenal is game week 23, and then actually you want Bruno for game week 24. So I can roll in game week 23 again, and then it's going to be like, okay, how do I get towards Bruno? And I think it's probably Ekitike out, right? So I think it's like, if I go out of Ekitike, do I go for someone like Calvert-Lewin at that time, who maybe, like, if I'm allergic still to all the forwards in the game, I go for Calvert-Lewin, and then like I can still, unfortunately, not squeeze through someone like a Lefebvre, but I think I could at least squeeze through a Foden, right? Or if I just restore Foden here, I mean, I could always just do this, right? So, all right, if I can actually spell and then also have the right position because the UI is so good. But yeah, say I do something like this in the future. I've made a couple defensive moves, so my defense is a touch weak, but I don't think like this is awful, right? Because the whole point is around game week 24, I do think that Richards should be back and should be really good, right? Like, for example, Richards from 24 onwards, I think, is generally like, quite decent. Even the Sunderland away game, I think we know is quite a nice game because Sunderland still aren't like the strongest of attack. So, like, whilst their defense is good, you can always gamble going a defender against Sunderland to get a clean sheet versus them. So if Richards is available from 24 onwards, I do have quite a few good playing defenders. Like even Anderson will have some decent fixtures around that point in time. So for example, he's got Brighton at home in game week 23, Everton at home in game week 25. So like Anderson as a long-term holds quite nice. And then if I have someone like Mukiele, like he's got really good games in 23 and 24. So I think that's kind of the plan for me. Like go for a Sunderland defender. Kind of hope that my slightly cheaper defense compared to like usually like what I have been putting out will work out. And then I suddenly move all of my money into the midfield is kind of how I feel like I'm going to play out my moves in the future. So I hope this makes sense, right? This still has 1.0 in the bank. So I think other people can kind of get there. They probably have cheaper defenders anyways. You don't necessarily need to have Saka in teams. Like, some people who actually own Rice over Saka, I don't think that's a problem whatsoever. So yeah, this is kind of the team that I think I'll work towards in the future. And that's kind of the plan. Keane obviously probably has to go. So I guess, one of the problems as well is like, okay, what do I do with Keane? Right. Is going to be a tricky situation, but we'll manage it as we go along too. And maybe let's say like if I feel differently about Liverpool, like the path that I go towards Bruno with can be a bit different. And we can sort of reevaluate then. But let's just see how we feel about all the teams in a few weeks' time and players. All right, back to chat here. Just quickly check for some super chats. Nothing at the moment. Perfect. Just going back to live chat. Paul's obviously heavily Holland captaincy favored, and then Bowen Saka other. Interesting. Like obviously people don't always have Bowen. Is my sound super low? That's a bit weird because it seems like the sound's actually decent, but let me know if that's the case. Semenyo or Stack, I would probably play Stack this week. Best defender is under 4.5. I think just going for a Sunderland defender is perfectly fine. Start 2, Virgil van Dijk, O'Reilly, and Rice. I'd probably do Virgil van Dijk and Rice. Kudus or Rogers for a -4. I'd probably just go Rogers still. You'd start Lefebvre and Thiago over Anderson Forest. Yeah, but I mean, what's the big pro of like? I mean, he's a DEFCON machine, but it's like, okay, that's kind of the ceiling, right? In a sense. Like, as long as, like, Lefebvre can also get DEFCON, but he's got a slightly better game himself and is definitely a little bit more of an attacking threat, plus has pens, versus Thiago, who, also has attacking threat, that sort of thing. So I think, sure, the floor of, let's say, those players could be less than Anderson, but I do think you are kind of hoping for higher ceiling there. AK126, thank you so much for your super chat. Semenyo to Gordon, Cherky or Rogers. Ooh, interesting. I'd probably go Cherky, I think. I still think Cherky has really good minutes at the moment. I think that he's playing exceptionally well. And you got Savinho out injured and Semenyo coming into the team. So that's kind of the main impacts. Reinders, I don't think really dents either Foden or Cherky's minutes. So to me, Reinders is the player who's going to lose out on minutes, and then Doku and Semenyo are going to play more football. So I think I'd probably just go for Cherky in the short term. 10 million budget for 2 defenders. Who to pick? I'd probably go Collins, and I'd probably go a Sunderland defender and just save some money. You could always just go. I mean, yeah. The thing is, you can't even really own Gabriel/Timber plus another defender, so you kind of just have to go away from it, or you go Tarkowski plus a Sunderland defender. I think that works too. Hey, Fran, we've got Hinkabed and Timber. Is it worth replacing one of them with Gabriel this week? I would probably just do Hinkabed to Gabriel. I don't think Timber to Gabriel makes any sense, unless you think Calafiori is out like long term. Start Wilson or Lefay. Probably Lefay. Just a slightly better fixture. Start Wirtz or O'Reilly. I mean, probably Wirtz. I don't really know where it starts, though. Obviously, I can make the same argument for O'Reilly, but yeah, probably just play Wirtz. Faraz, thank you so much for your message. I've got 1 free transfer and 0.7 in the bank. Do you think I should roll or make a transfer with Minte, Anderson, Richards, Cunha, VVD, Thiago? I mean, I think Cunha's great. VVD's fine. Thiago's fine. Anderson's fine. It seems like Minte could just about make it. So then you hopefully just have Anderson as an auto sub and Richards doesn't need to play. I think you should be fine. Will Hinkapie start? I think he starts. You've taken 2 risks this week. F4 says, I sold Hinkapie for Teo and then sold Foden for Rogers. Fair enough. I believe Frimpong starts versus Fulham. I think he should. Especially since if we think Wirtz is not going to start, then I think that's probably going to help him, right? Just in terms of overall minutes, across the board. Thoughts on Saka captain? I quite like it, but I still prefer Holland, just due to the home game. O'Reilly to Hall, what to do with Minte? I kind of think you kind of punt Minte this game, or if you really need an enabler, I would just go Stack. If you can go Minte to Cherky, I think that's the only move where I'd really consider this is a great move that I would make every time. Hadzingan says, help Fran, I've got flagged Rice, Minte, Keane, Rodon, 2 free transfers. I probably would keep Keane because I think it seems like he could be fine. Although if you don't have a defensive auto sub, I'd probably consider using a transfer there. Assuming that you actually have someone who's a better auto sub than Rodon, I would probably just go out of Minte and hope that Rice starts. I do think Rice starts personally. Would you start O'Reilly or Thiago? Definitely Thiago over O'Reilly. Hey, Meme, how are you? Bowen captain? I quite like it. I clearly can't go for Bowen captain, but I do back the idea of going for a Bowen captaincy. $25 minutes until the deadline as well. Bruno G or Gordon? I'd probably go Gordon still. Start Virgil van Dijk or Wilson? I think I'd probably go Virgil. Semenyo to Rogers for a -4. I don't think is worth a -4 because it seems like Semenyo is going to play. Do I think Vandenberg starts this week? I do think he will. Because, Vandenberg was also on the bench in the previous match, right? So I kind of think that he starts. Unless, suddenly he's just become benched, right? Which is obviously a problem. Isaac, thank you so much or Isaac, thank you so much for the super chat. Would you play Sanchez or Dubravka this week? Ooh. I kind of think I'd play Dubravka, to be honest. I think City's expected goals from what I could remember are a lot higher than, let's say, Brighton's. So I'll probably take the opportunity to play Dubravka. Another thing too is you probably are playing City attackers anyways, so you're kind of backing against a Sanchez result. So I think it makes sense to kind of widen your opportunity to get a better result here in this game week by actually just going for the Burnley clean sheet potential. Not that it's high, right? You're just kind of hoping, okay, both teams should concede a lot of, I guess, shots. So hopefully maybe Dubravka outscores, let's say, Sanchez best case with saves. And then, a miracle case is, he gets a clean sheet versus Brighton. Start Raul or Jeremy. This is a really tough game for Jeremy, so I'd definitely do Raul. This is a tough game for Raul too, but at least he's at home. What are my thoughts on Sobo? He's been very underwhelming. Yeah, he's underwhelming, but it's the routes towards points are still very much there, right? Like let's say he can still get an assist, he can still get DEFCON, he can still get a penalty. I'm not really worried about picks where it's like their routes towards points are still there. I'm more worried about picks where their routes towards points aren't there. What are the chances of Minte and Welbeck starting? I think Welbeck starting is pretty high. Minte starting, I think, is probably below 50% because I just think that if he has a dead leg, like, why risk it? Start Stack or Wilson? Stack for me, for sure. Gabriel and Virgil out for a -4. I don't think it's worth a -4, but I'm not in the position of doing that. I just still think that this is not a very bad Virgil game itself. So I'd probably just keep Virgil and then just do Gabriel for the next week. Rice to Trossard 2-week punt, fair play. I do quite like that. Play one, Elf, Tjor, Anderson. I think I would actually play Tjor first and then Elf and then Anderson in that order. Rasmus, thank you so much for your super chat. Bruno G, Gordon, or Cherky. You've already got Foden. I would still go Cherky, honestly. I think Cherky is like literally an exceptional pick. Jangsta, thank you so much for the super chat. Sorry, not a super chat, but thank you for messaging and nice to see you around, my friend. Hinkapie and Riot to Gabriel and Verbruggen -4 or Senesi to VDV for free. I would do the Hinkapie move personally because I do think Hinkapie is not a great -4 this week, but you're probably going to do that move in the future anyways in terms of Hinkapie to Gabriel. And I think you're going to feel a little bit better owning Gabriel in the future. Senesi to VDV. I guess one question as well is, if you go Senesi to VDV, do you still leave yourself the possibility of going Hinkapie to Gabriel? Because if you can do that, Senesi to VDV, and you still have enough money to go Hinkapie to Gabriel in the future, I might prefer that path. But I'm assuming that by going for Senesi to VDV, you still can't go Hinkapie to Gabriel, right? So let me know your thoughts on that. Start Senesi or O'Reilly. I think I'd probably just play O'Reilly. Which goalie would I suggest? Raya to... I think Kelleher is really good. Sell Keane or Hall. I think I would sell neither. I mean, why would you need to sell them? Yo, Fran, you okay? Should I do Hinkapie to Gabriel? I would 100% do that move, especially with free transfer to the bank. I mean, I literally did that move with one free transfer. Yanongo, thank you so much for your super chat. Start Enzo Lefebvre or Anderson. I would go Enzo Lefebvre. I mean, even in my own team, I've played Enzo Lefebvre over Anderson. Van de Ven, Mukiele, or Alderete. As a transfer this week, or just like generally speaking? I think as a transfer this week, obviously, I'd probably still go Mukiele, even though I think this week specifically, Van de Ven's obviously better. Hinkapie not playing. I think Hinkapie is playing, but the point is you want to kind of own Hinkapie for the short term, but Gabriel's already here, right? He was kind of the placeholder for Gabriel. So I would just go Gabriel now, knowing that Gabriel's going to get even more price rises, and then Hinkapie is going to get even more price falls, plus also has a potential of not starting in the future. Like, I think Hinkapie 100% starts for Bournemouth, especially with Calafiori being out, but you don't know how long Calafiori is out for, which is a problem too. Like, the reporting has not been great. What's my plan with O'Reilly? Probably sell him in the future. Yeah. Like, I think he'll just become a Sunderland defender for myself, or, worst case scenario, a good Munson. What's my wildcard draft for GW20? If you go back maybe around 1 hour, at least, like, if you flick through the video, you'll probably find sections where I'm kind of like transferring in and out of players a couple times. Like, if you can see a completely radical team where you see Gabriel and Timber, that's going to be my wildcard draft. The kind of section in terms of the stream where I actually go through a wildcard draft. Start Dallo or O'Reilly. I think I'd probably do Dallo. Are you interested in Brendan Johnson when he starts playing? Not really, because I think Sardo's going to come back too, and I don't think his minutes will be 100% perfect. Fran, who would you bench out of Minte and Thiago? Because I'm thinking of starting Sobo and Cherokee and Cunha. I'd probably just bench Thiago in that case. I'd probably still bench Thiago. Kind of hope for the best with Minte in that case. I think is a valid take. Start O'Reilly or Mukiele. Probably Mukiele, honestly. Start Wilson or Klein. Probably Wilson. Just because it's not a great week for Klein anyways, and he's not like a great def corner. I think Riley should be starting most games for Man City, but he is someone who I think where if he plays poorly, of course, there's a chance of him being subbed, right? As we saw in the previous match. Whereas like someone like Nunez, I don't think that the available replacement is as good. Like the opportunity for City to actually suddenly play Ake left center back and then have Guardiola come on at left back, or even like if you let's say so. The reverse, right? Let's say Guardiola started that match. It's possible that Ake just comes in and then suddenly just plays left center back, and then Guardiola plays the last 20 to 30 minutes of a match in left back. And I think that's more than plausible. So O'Reilly, I think going forwards is going to be someone who has worse minutes compared to someone like Nunez, who just like there's not many situations where O'Reilly. Well, I mean Nunez, to be fair, I think to actually give respect to Nunez, he's played really well. Like he has played close to faultless as an attacker for this team. And on defense, I don't think he's like shown many signs of like, let's say, being a bad one-on-one defender. It's like kind of lapses in concentration, stuff like that. Him at the back post at times, but it's like for the most part, Nunez played close to brilliantly. So his minutes feel perfect, whereas O'Reilly's are, you always have the flexibility with the City team right now to be able to move a lot of the pieces around, and suddenly O'Reilly's minutes look poor. Salah, thank you so much for the super chat. Nice to see you around, my friend. Kelleher, Timber, Van Heck. Ooh, Van Heck's nice for this week. Nunez, Foden, Gordon, Cunha, Rice, Ekitike, Holland, Captain. Watkins too. Ooh, nice. Dubravka, Wilson, O'Brien, Richards. Interesting. Okay, I'm trying to think about your defense now. You definitely play Nunez over O'Brien, huh? I'm trying to think about this because I think, is there a chance you play O'Brien over Nunez, or does it not make sense? Maybe you just play Nunez anyways. It is a really good first sub, to be fair. I'd probably have O'Brien first sub over Wilson. Otherwise, I think you've got an exceptional team, my friend. I would start Rice over Wilson as well. Just because Rice is like so good at so many different things. I think I would have O'Brien first sub over Wilson, and then I would play Rice. That's how I would do it. De Kuiper, a good pick? No, I don't think he's a good pick at all. Siam had the same thoughts in terms of Rice. Transfer plans. My transfer plans are, they were to go Gabriel this week, and then to just leave room for Palmer in 2 weeks' time, and then to leave room for Bruno in 4 weeks' time. Start 2 of Van Heck, Foden, Rice. I'd probably just do... Oh, that's tough. I'd probably do Foden and Van Heck, honestly. Maybe there's a chance for example, like if let's say Rice was available to start, there's still a possibility that he can get subbed off a little bit earlier than usual. Would you play Elf instead of O'Reilly or Keane? Yeah, easily. I would play Elf over O'Reilly. I would not play him over Keane because I think if Keane starts, or like Keane doesn't really have the same potential in terms of like being a sub on sub off option, right? Whereas O'Reilly does. Would you swap O'Reilly for Hall? No, I think I'd feel a bit more comfortable with Thiaw just because Hall might be like with the knock or something like that. You never know if he can just aggravate it and suddenly he's injured. So I think Thiaw is a bit better. Anderson or Senesi, Arsenal start 1. Anderson for sure. I think the way that I see it is like Senesi could probably lose and concede more than 2 goals. More likely than Anderson would, just because Arsenal are in a better flow. Thank you for moderating, Faraz, as well. I appreciate that. Start Sanchez or Dubravka. We kind of discussed this, but I think for a lot of us, we have City players starting in the team. So you're kind of backing City anyways as a team. So why not just back Dubravka on top of that, as opposed to sort of like hedging? Hey, Fran, is Keane a transfer out this week? I don't think so, unless you don't have a good substitute, right? If you don't have a good available substitute, I'd probably do that. Oh, did I miss the super chat? I'm really sorry. Clever, or Cleve. Cleve Purnama. Let me know if I'm pronouncing that wrong. But thank you so much for your super chat. Start Lewis Miley or... Ooh, interesting choice there. Hakeem Anderson. I'd probably go for Lewis Miley, to be honest. I think Liverpool will probably break the clean sheet of Fulham, so I'll just take my chances with the Miley here. He can get a clean sheet at a higher rate. His DEFCON's actually really good, so I'd probably go Miley there. Good luck with that. So would you swap O'Reilly for Thiaw this week? I probably would, yeah. I think Collins is exceptional as well. O'Reilly's Collins is also a really good move. I think the only reason why I mentioned Thiaw is if you really want to back Newcastle, I almost think that Thiaw is a safer option to kind of allow you to get the Newcastle player you want. But I think actually if you want to consider a transfer in defense, I think Collins is like really, really good too. Start Goodmanson over Anderson, 100% I would do that. Lewis Miley, O'Reilly. I'd play Lewis Miley too as well over O'Reilly. Start Hinkapie, O'Reilly, Hinkapie for sure. Would you take a hit to go out of Semenyo this week? No, I don't think it's worth it. I think he's going to play, right? So unless you don't have a good auto sub, I wouldn't touch it. Is Semenyo transfer out, especially if you have 2 Arsenal defense? Not really, to be honest. If you have multiple free transfers in the bank, go for it. It's not worth a hit, though, obviously. Hey, Fran, Semenyo out, Rodgers in. Rice starts in the XI with Guehi as first sub. I like that, yeah. That makes sense. Start Van der Ven, Sunderland at home, or Garner, Brentford at home. Ooh. Man, I kind of like Garner versus Brentford at home, to be honest. Is my team locked in? Yeah, it's basically locked in. So we've got 14 minutes to ask or rather answer chat questions. Yeah, looking forward to it. This game week at least. Any news on Minte? I mean, he had a dead leg and he was in training, right? But I think the concern is like, do they have enough substitutes to allow him to be benched? And I think that is the answer. Like, if you're managing someone's minutes and you know someone's had a dead leg, like, I don't think it makes sense to risk him as, starting him. You put the captaincy on Welbeck. Man, that is risky for sure, but good luck to that. Petrovic or Dubravka, both bad picks this week. Man, I'd probably go Dubravka just to kind of like hope for more saves or something like that. Bench boost, Riley, Goodmanson, Virgil, Wilson, Lefay. Love it. Stacker, Gwecky. Why are we Wait, are you using your second bench boost already? I'm so confused. I do think Keane will start. It's not a guess, though. It's like, I just think Keane starts or he doesn't play, right? Like, I kind of have to hope for the best there. I'm not really seeing, like, this is as a potential for Keane to come off the bench. So that's kind of why I have Keane ahead of, like, let's say Anderson, as an example. Fran, thanks a lot for recommending Cherky to me a few weeks ago. He really improved my rank. But do you think he's a sell soon with Semenyo coming? Honestly, no. I would still kind of think that Cherky's minutes will be close to perfect because you can still kind of see the team playing where, let's say, like, I think Bernardo's minutes could actually drop. I think Reinder's minutes 100% will be dropped. So it's like Cherky, in theory, could still play. There's even a possibility that Cherky plays over Foden. Let's see what Semenyo does to this Man City team. Because it takes time to integrate too, right? And I feel like as a Cherky owner, you have the luxurious position of holding someone who's an amazing pick in FPL until he's no longer an amazing pick. So wait for that moment to happen, and then you sell Cherky. Until then, enjoy Cherky. And I'm happy you went there. Is Mateus Nunes the best City defender to buy? I think so, 100%. Start Dorgu or Minte? To me, I'd still start Minte and hope for the best. Because I don't think this is a particularly good City game. United game. I think United will actually lose their clean sheet. And Dorgu's like not that exciting, right? I mean, the exciting game has come and gone, and it wasn't particularly good. Is Ekitike essential? Absolutely not. Start Wilson or Stack? Stack for sure. O'Reilly or Wilson? I would go Wilson probably. Bruno G or Minte? I would probably go Bruno G. Start Wilson or Stack? Stack. Best Words replacements? Cherky, obviously, as the first replacement. After that, probably consider a Newcastle midfielder like Gordon or maybe Kudus even is actually quite interesting as a pick for this week. Paqueta, unfortunately, is a doubt for today. So otherwise, like he would be an interesting option, but I think that kind of rules him out. Rogers is obviously available as a pick too. Private, thank you so much for your super chat. Hey man, start 2 of Stack, Wirtz, Alderete, Raul. Interesting. I think Stack for sure. I think Wirtz is tricky because I think he might be benched. I probably think Raul is slightly better than Alderete this week, so I think I'd probably actually suggest Raul. And then Wirtz. My main issue is I do think Wirtz is benched. I mean, do you guys think Wirtz is benched? I just think there's like a lot of potential for Wirtz to get benched here. Start Virgil or Thiago. Virgil for me. Keane starting. I don't know if Keane starts, but I'm just hoping for the best here. I just think that he either starts or he doesn't play. Rice or Keane. I think I'd play Keane first and then just have Rice as an auto sub. Who's the best next 5 fixtures? Pope or Pickford? I think Pope, to be honest. Haven't done Hincapié to Gabriel yet. Should I just wait? I probably would do it. If you have more than one free transfer, I would do it. I did it with one free transfer, but that's because I'm, a bit more aggressive as a manager with transfer value. But yeah. Who are the best vice captaincy options other than Saka or Bowen? I mean, Cunha maybe, because he's technically on penalty still. Hi, Fran. Do you reckon Timber's rested or he starts? I think he starts. I think like White is coming back from injury himself, so I kind of struggle to believe that he's going to do too well. Hey, doctor. So Captain Haaland on Ekitike. Player motivation may go either way. Chelsea too. If you may, please help me. Who to start? I still think I'd go for Haaland, bro. And thank you so much for the chat message, doctor. Let's have a look at your team. So I'm looking at your team now. I think your team's in a perfect state. Mukiele versus Anderson's. I probably would play Mukiele over Anderson. That's kind of my personal preference. Because you're not really backing, like, you have double Liverpool attack, right? So you don't really want Anderson to do well anyways. Why not just back Liverpool attack and then just go Mukiele? Because it's not like you're backing against Tottenham or backing with Tottenham in any sort of way. You're backing against them. That is probably the only thing I would do. I think Semenyo is perfectly fine as a hold this week. Do you have free transfers? Probably. Do you have, does it seem like you have free transfers? You already went for Keane. Um, I think Semenyo. I mean, you could even go Turkey this week, bro. If it's not for a if it's not for a hit, I would consider going Turkey for sure. Start Rice or Anderson, Kashif says. I think Rice. M7MDAB, thank you for your super chat. Start two of Pino, Lacroix, Dorgu, Mukiele. Probably do Dorgu, Mukiele, my friend. Pino first sub. Just because like these, like okay, Dorgu at least probably has attacking potential for at least one game with the sort of positional share he has over like a good like attacking role. And then Mukiele is just a great def conner, plus has a slightly less tough game compared to Lacroix. And the same thing with Pino, right? Like Newcastle defense is really good, so I think that's like offsetting my want for you to play Pino and Lacroix. Other chat messages. Does Wirt start? I personally think he's benched, but I could be wrong. Start Heaven over Elliot Anderson. I probably would. Yeah, okay, so you're backing double defense for United. That could make sense. I just think Leeds are going to score though. It's kind of my concern there. Sir says, and thank you for your super chat. You got Minte, Rice, Keane, Weaver. Okay, Weaver's definitely out. Free risky players. Should I move from Minte? Yeah, I think going out of Minte makes sense. I do think Rice is going to play though, because it seems like most of the sources suggest that Rice is fine. So one thing I'd probably ask you is like, do you have a good auto sub at all? If not, yeah, I kind of think the Minte move might be necessary. Bench one of Turkey, Sobo, Gordon. Just bench Sobo for sure. Tior, Sobozlai. To play this week, I'd probably go Tior. Had a great week with Tarko, Garner, and Bruno G leading away. Garner was a good pick. Yeah, I mean, like it was a great haul, but at the same time, like Garner has the type of haul that like so many budget mids have been having this season, in the sense that you can get one set piece assist plus something in open play if you have like a lucky game, if that makes sense. It's not like Garner, for example, is a super attacking player, right? So that goal was like that one shot that he had for the game. And like there's a couple other picks who can do that at any point in time. Like a Lefay could do that, a Stack could do that, a Granit Xhaka could do that. But yeah, I mean he that's why he's also on the cheat sheet before the haul. So yeah, congratulations to you for the Garner pick. Nottingham Forest weren't particularly good either. I mean, I suppose the benefit for Garner, of course, is that he sort of benefited positionally from KDH being out. So he's kind of become like a like-for-like replacement. But I also think Everton have been a bit lucky in games. Like, admittedly, they should have lost the clean as well. So, yeah, I mean, from like a long-term point of view, I don't know if I think I'd go Garner over, let's say, Lefay and Stack. But I do like him. Or even Anderson, right? Or Xhaka. So, I mean, these are all decent picks. Anderson's probably the most boring of them all, especially if he loses set piece share. Like we saw Paqueta get 1 goal, 1 assist last week, but it's not like he had an amazing game. Like he's someone who still has like absolutely terrible underlyings. There's just a lot of midfielders this season who have that sort of haul potential because they're on one set piece, and then obviously if you get the goal in the one game, then you're flying. Doctor, I don't think it's worth taking a hit, my friend. I'd probably just go Turkey next week. Sir says he's got Alderete and Thiago on the bench, but you have 3 weak players and only 2 subs. The way that I'd approach it, though, is I think I mean, Alderete and Thiago are fine. I think I'd probably make 1 free transfer then in that case. I think the risky players, most of them will play, though. So I would just make the 1 free transfer. Start Keane or O'Reilly? Definitely Keane, because you can get the auto sub. Semenyo to Turkey with last free transfer, I think makes sense as a move. Bench Dorgu, Thiago. I think I would bench Dorgu, to be honest. Start which 2 of O'Reilly, Keane, and Dorgu. I think Keane and Dorgu just because like these players are guaranteed to play, and Dorgu at least you can benefit from the really attacking share. So happy with my minus 16 last week to bring in Cunha, Lewis, Potter, and Gabriel. Got a 56 pointer. Man, that's awesome. I mean, Gabriel obviously kind of just made the hit worth it, right? Obviously, like, I don't know. I was considering Hinkepie to Gabriel, and then I thought Hinkepie was going to play anyways. He did play, and it was awful. Like, awful outcome, or swing, rather. TBG here. Hope you're a good bro. Which would you start? Minte, Wirtz, Van de Ven, Dallo. Ooh, man, I'd probably play Van de Ven plus maybe Minte and hope for the best with him. Would you consider starting Alderete over Dorgu? I definitely would. Because it's basically Alderete. Wait, is Alderete Defcon and high chance of conceding, I suppose, versus Dorgu high chance of conceding versus and Dorgu maybe could play in a more attacking position than usual. So tough decision, but I'd probably back the Defcon in most instances unless you're like really confident in Dorgu getting an attacking return. What moves did I make this week? Just Hinkapie to Gabriel and just chill. Obviously chill because I literally have no free transfers left. Like the stream, the guy is good and deserves backing. Thank you so much, man. Start O'Reilly or Rice. I think I would just do Rice because like O'Reilly kind of has that sub on sub off potential before 60 minutes, whereas with Rice, I tend to think he's going to play enough minutes to be fine, or he just never comes on, right? Start Keane over Minte. I think Keane over Minte makes sense because like with Minte, I think that's the situation once again between the 15 to 25 minute mark where like Minte could be coming off the bench just because they're trying to manage his minutes because he's got a dead leg, right? It's kind of different to the context of like Keane being the type of player who's like either fit to actually start the game and is a center back, you know, and is going to play the game out versus like needs to come on for 5 to 10 minutes to close out a game as a defender. Timber to Gabriel must. I don't think that's must at all. I think Hinkapie to Gabriel in the future is a must, but you don't have to do it this week either. Who to keep first on bench? O'Reilly or Xhaka? I would do Xhaka for sure. I would even consider playing Xhaka over like O'Reilly anyways, like as a starting player. Like in my team, like if I could play Enzo Lefebvre over O'Reilly and just play like what? If you ask me like the question of like whether I could put one of the two on the bench, like I'd definitely put O'Reilly. Who would be your 5 non-negotiable must-have players regardless of fixture? I mean, right now, probably Saka because like he at least plays like really good minutes. Haaland still. Gabriel, I would say. So that's 3 players. I'm kind of already struggling now. Foden, maybe. I don't even think Foden's essential. I think those 3 players are kind of essential. That's it. Everyone else can kind of be like whatever. Like for goalkeepers, I think we can debate like 3 or 4 picks that are good. 5 even with Sanchez. Like I'm thinking, like in goalkeeping positions, like you can go Raya, Kelleher, Verbruggen, Sanchez, and Pickford. Arguably, I don't like Pickford that much. In defense, like you can obviously, I think maybe right now, like if you had a wild card, I would say Tarkowski could be on there. But even still, like I can make the case for Collins. I think over Tarkowski for sure. And then yeah, like the midfield is a bit of a barren wasteland. So I think like one of the essential picks in the midfield, in my opinion, is having like one of the kind of budget midfielders who's like really good, or at least has some set piece share plus positional sort of attacking share that's decent. So like Stack, like Lefay, like Garner, having one of those players makes sense. That's kind of how I would feel about the game. I don't think there's a lot of essential picks, and it's a bit of a shame. Cherky, I think, is like, I wouldn't say he's essential, but I think he's like the most fun pick that I would like to own in my team that I don't have, if you wanted me to say that. Deadline, literally, guys, in 1 minute, please make your moves. Wilson going to get any points this week? I can't see it, to be honest, but like Liverpool aren't that good. Rice, I think, starts. Minte, I don't think starts. That's kind of my take. Chai, thank you so much, my friend. Confident of a top 10K? Yeah, I mean, with the position that I'm in now, sort of, but let's just see how it goes. All the best to you. When's your birthday, my friend? And Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year to the whole of chat, actually. And that is the deadline. Thank you guys so much for being here. Probably going to go off and get some dinner sometime soon and then watch some of the football too. So take care, guys. I'll see you guys soon. Leave a like. Subscribe, as all of you guys have anyways in the chat. But appreciate you guys for being around, and I'll see you guys next week too. Take care, my friends.